All right. Let's welcome our next storyteller onto the stage, Pria Acharya. Yeah! I love the woos out there. Pria is writing a book called Me Reclaimed, which is an extension of this story. She also has a website and recovery blog with the title Me Reclaimed. Feel free to follow her on Facebook page for it, which is called Me Reclaimed. Great job, you were listening. All right, give it up for Pria.
It's been 30 years since I spoke in front of an audience, but I just completed my first colonoscopy as a result of turning 50. I struggled through imagining my death if I didn't wake up. So I figured if I could do that, I could do this. Is it weird to think your colonoscopy doctor is cute with a charming smile and you want to tell him, hey, there are more attractive parts of me to explore? My fearful thoughts got interrupted by my attraction thoughts. I dreaded the invasive procedure and survived. If I could survive that level of physical vulnerability, maybe I could survive this very personal storytelling performance with a mental, emotional, vulnerable display of my guts. Welcome to my shit show. I've known of a desire to express myself since winning an essay contest in elementary school. This grew into original oratory competitions, theater, running an Indian community radio program in high school, being a writer for the college paper, and writing promotions for Fox TV, my first job after college with writing and psychology degrees. Creativity became an outlet I craved. I needed to express myself and be heard. This growing need may have arisen from a family, especially my mother, who seemed to not hear or see me. I felt like a misfit. Any attempts to be noticed were condemned. My mother forbid me to spend the night at friends' houses, go to parties or concerts because of all the drugs everywhere. Doing those things would mean I was becoming a dreaded American. And we can't have that. Forget being a letter girl because of the small skirts they wear. I needed to learn how to not only be a good Indian girl, but a good Brahmin Indian girl of the priestly upper class. If I dared to ask for permission to do anything, my mother would tell me my older siblings didn't ask to do those things, so I eventually stopped asking for anything because asking was bad too. In fact, smiling and laughing is bad, as my mother pointed out when she caught me joyfully singing along to Careless Whisper with a friend. How dare I laugh while my poor father was working for us in another state? It became clear I could not belong or fit in with my family. Honoring my interests disappointed them and kept me from being one of them. I tried to observe the unspoken rules in my family to figure out the script to get my family's approval, be seen, and validated. From the institution of my original family, I extended this need to fit in and belong to the institution of marriage. I was committed, loyal, and devoted to my husband, our marriage, and daughter. I wanted her to know the stability of family. We were a unit. Much of what I thought and felt involved them. My expectations of myself were very intertwined with perceived expectations from them. When my husband said he would stop his drug and alcohol addiction, would help with parenting, running our home, and have intimacy, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I reminded myself of my loyalty and strength. I can and have endured. When my needs to be seen, heard, and cared for got ignored, I convinced myself that I could be strong enough to ignore these basic needs too. I became confused if that was strength or self-harm. How much does the self matter in marriage and a family unit? I regularly sacrificed myself on the altar of the collective. I'm not sure who expected that of me, whether it was me, my husband, or the societal script for staying in a marriage no matter what as a good woman. I had gone from trying to be a good girl to a good woman. I just didn't know what that meant for me. Each time I sacrificed and abandoned myself by conforming, I lost another piece of me. I had been preoccupied with learning and understanding others' expectations and trying to be pleasing. No was not part of my vocabulary. I kept giving when there was nothing left to give from, and becoming empty. I felt confused about where I began and ended. I couldn't see or hear me anymore. I needed to face and learn about myself, a journey that has no end. As I approached 50, I began to feel growing unrest. I was no longer in my late 30s, early or late 40s. The number 50 had no way to sugarcoat it. At the very best, optimistic perspective, it was at least the midpoint of my life. The math could not be denied. It was finite. I would, at very best, have 50 additional years on the planet. The truth and reality of that number couldn't be overlooked. What would become of me as I approached my death? A few years ago, my addict spouse gave me overly spiked pot brownies he had made after giving me 2 gin and tonics. As we listened to smooth jazz, I felt my heart beat faster and then get out of control. I didn't realize jazz could have that effect. I began to wonder if I was having a heart attack as I struggled to stay conscious. Soon there were about 9 paramedics in my living room asking me my status. I tried to respond with slurred speech in my flimsy nightgown while trying not to pass out and die. I did manage to critically wonder why there were so many paramedics for this situation. It seemed to be an odd overkill process. And was my boob showing? And does it even matter right now? As I was passing out in the ambulance, I told a paramedic with slurred speech, "I'm dying." He promptly replied with possible rolled eyes, "No, you're having an anxiety attack," before turning away. I spent the night in the emergency room, mostly passed out while my heart was being evaluated. After my pot trauma, I tried to confirm I really was alive, truly alive, and how I would even know. Life and death had just seemed to have such a fine line. Since then, I've deeply connected with the question, what makes me feel alive? Standing here in front of you now may be one of those things. Such encounters with death prompted me to consider my mortality even more. I had to pause from the everyday, mundane busyness and meaningless struggles to consider the big picture. I wondered why I was born, what my purpose is, what I would leave behind, and what my legacy would be. The script and boxes I received from my family and society didn't describe the wild path of being my own unique individual. The collective rules specified to be normal and not upset the status quo. Don't create waves. You must not be weird. oops, look at me now, weirder than ever, letting it all hang out in my shit show. I felt lost and tried to figure out why in therapy. Meanwhile, I stumbled upon a YouTube video on covert narcissism by a psychologist. Not only did my husband fit everything on the checklist, but so did my mother. It was like I had married her and my deceased overt narcissist father disguised by my husband. With repetition compulsion, I was blindly continuing the same role I had with my pathological parents while being family scapegoat. The doormat role included trying to get approval from people who would never provide it. While separated in the home, giving me a silent treatment for 7 months, my husband responded to my attempt to communicate by telling me to go find someone emotionally available. Will do, honey. I painfully realized and accepted that he didn't see value or love me at any level. My daughter couldn't grow up with this sad example of a marriage and repeat it for herself. I had abandoned myself, and my husband had encouraged me to leave and lose myself. How can that be love? I couldn't approach 50 and eventual death with someone who wouldn't and couldn't love me. I need to find me at all the places I left her behind. I stepped outside the expectations from me, from him, from the collective. In fall of 2016, I took a spiritual writing class with Jeff Brown, which became pivotal in choosing to divorce my covert narc husband and let go of my covert narc mother and focus on healing from these damaging relationships instead. I chose to be alone, for real, and now I can begin to see me. Hello, me, I'm here, and I'll reclaim me. I've embarked on my recovery and have been guiding and coaching others to do the same. This concludes my shit show. It seems I'm breathing and somehow managed to survive this. Perhaps I can now survive anything.